When the Tiber ran red, how Rome almost destroyed itself. The death of Nero and the empire without a master. The man who ruled the greatest empire on earth stood trembling in the darkness. Not long before dawn on June 9, 68 AD, Emperor Nero hid inside a modest country villa a few miles outside Rome. Gone were the marble halls of the imperial palace, the cheering crowds, and the glittering banquets that had once surrounded him. Instead, there was only silence, broken by the distant sound of horses approaching through the Italian countryside. The emperor who had commanded millions now possessed almost nothing. His finest robes had been exchanged for a simple cloak. His servants had deserted him. Even the Praetorian Guard, the elite soldiers sworn to protect him with their lives, had abandoned their oath. Only a handful of loyal companions remained. Nero paced the floor in panic. Every passing moment brought the Senate soldiers closer. He knew exactly what awaited him if he were captured alive. Public humiliation. Chains. Execution. His body displayed before the people who had once called him Caesar. He lifted a dagger, then lowered it again. Again and again, he hesitated. Ancient writers describe him weeping, unable to gather the courage to end his own life. According to tradition, he cried out repeatedly, "What an artist dies in me." Whether those exact words were spoken or later embellished by Roman historians remains uncertain. Ancient sources often mixed fact with dramatic storytelling, especially when writing about unpopular emperors. Yet what is beyond dispute is that Nero understood his reign had reached its end. Outside, hoofbeats grew louder. One of his companions finally helped drive the blade into the emperor's throat. Blood soaked the floor. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, the family that had ruled Rome since Augustus nearly a century earlier, was finished. For the first time in almost 100 years, the Roman Empire had no emperor. And almost no one realized that this single death would unleash one of the bloodiest political crises in Roman history. Within 18 months, four emperors would claim the throne. Roman legions would slaughter one another. The capital itself would become a battlefield. Ancient temples would burn. Thousands of Roman citizens would die beneath Roman swords. The empire would come closer to destroying itself than ever before. How could the strongest civilization in the world collapse into chaos almost overnight? This is the story of the year Rome went to war with itself. At first glance, the Roman Empire of 68 AD appeared stronger than ever. Its borders stretched farther than any previous republic or kingdom had imagined possible. To the west, Roman Britain continued to expand despite stubborn resistance from northern tribes. Across Gaul, prosperous towns lined carefully engineered roads that connected distant provinces to the heart of the empire. Spain supplied enormous quantities of silver and olive oil. Egypt fed millions with grain harvested from the fertile Nile Valley. Merchant ships crossed the Mediterranean every day carrying wine, marble, silk, spices, glassware, and countless other goods between bustling ports. Rome itself stood at the center of this vast network like the heart of a living organism. Nearly 1 million people crowded its hills and valleys, making it one of the largest cities on earth. The skyline shimmered with marble temples, towering public buildings, triumphal arches, and aqueducts carrying fresh water from distant mountains. Markets overflowed with merchants shouting in Latin, Greek, Egyptian, Punic, and dozens of other languages spoken across the empire. The smell of fresh bread drifted through narrow streets every morning. Blacksmiths hammered iron from sunrise until dusk. Children raced between crowded apartment buildings. Priests climbed temple steps carrying offerings to Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and countless other gods believed to protect the city. At every corner stood reminders of Rome's extraordinary achievements. Yet beneath this magnificent surface, cracks had already begun spreading through the foundations. The empire depended upon a fragile balance of power. The emperor ruled because several groups accepted his authority. The Senate provided political legitimacy. The Praetorian Guard protected him inside Rome. The provincial governors enforced his policies across distant territories. Most importantly, the legions obeyed his commands. If even one of these pillars collapsed, the entire political system could begin to unravel. And under Nero, each pillar had weakened. When Nero first became emperor in 54 AD, many Romans greeted him with optimism. He was only 16 years old. Young. Educated. Interested in music, poetry, and the arts. His early years were largely guided by experienced advisors, including the famous philosopher Seneca and the capable praetorian prefect Burrus. During this period, the empire remained relatively stable. But as Nero grew older, his personality, and perhaps the enormous pressures of absolute power, began to change. He increasingly viewed criticism as betrayal. Political rivals disappeared. Executions multiplied. Even members of his own family were not safe. His mother, Agrippina the Younger, one of the most influential women in Roman history, was ultimately murdered after their relationship deteriorated. Ancient sources accuse Nero of ordering her death, though modern historians continue debating the precise circumstances and motivations. His wife Octavia died under suspicious circumstances. Later came Poppaea Sabina, whose death was also surrounded by conflicting accounts. Many stories about Nero originate from historians writing after his downfall, including Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio. While these authors remain invaluable sources, they often portrayed him in the darkest possible light. Separating political propaganda from historical reality continues to challenge scholars today. Yet regardless of exaggeration, one conclusion remains clear. By the final years of his reign, Nero had alienated much of Rome's ruling elite. Then came the Great Fire. In July of 64 AD, flames erupted in the crowded commercial districts near the Circus Maximus. Driven by powerful summer winds, the fire spread with terrifying speed. Wooden apartment buildings ignited like dry grass. Families fled carrying children, valuables, or whatever possessions they could lift. Many escaped with nothing. Others never escaped at all. For 6 horrifying days, Rome burned. Even after the flames subsided, fresh fires erupted again. Entire neighborhoods vanished beneath ash. Ancient temples collapsed. Treasured works of art disappeared forever. Thousands found themselves homeless. Almost immediately, rumors spread throughout the city. Some whispered that Nero himself had ordered the fire to clear land for an enormous palace. Others insisted these accusations were nothing more than political slander. Modern historians generally agree that there is no reliable evidence proving Nero deliberately started the Great Fire. Urban fires were tragically common in ancient cities built largely from wood and tightly packed housing. Nevertheless, perception often mattered more than truth. Many Romans believed their emperor had failed them. Others never forgave him for constructing the lavish Domus Aurea, the Golden House, on land devastated by the disaster. The palace stretched across vast areas of central Rome. Artificial lakes shimmered beneath elaborate gardens. Walls glittered with gold leaf. Dining rooms rotated to imitate the movement of the heavens. While thousands struggled to rebuild their homes, the emperor's residence became more extravagant than anything Rome had ever seen. Resentment deepened. Far beyond Rome, another dangerous transformation was taking place. For generations, Roman armies had conquered foreign peoples. Now those armies were changing in ways few politicians truly understood. Each legion swore loyalty to the emperor. In theory. In practice, soldiers often felt far stronger bonds with the generals who led them through years of hardship. A commander who shared their dangers, rewarded bravery, distributed captured wealth, and respected their sacrifices, could inspire extraordinary devotion. Many legions had spent decades stationed along distant frontiers. The Rhine, the Danube, Britain, Syria. These soldiers rarely saw Rome itself. To them, their commanding general often represented imperial authority more directly than the emperor living hundreds or even thousands of miles away. It was an invisible shift. Quiet. Gradual. Almost impossible to notice. Until the moment everything broke apart. The first crack appeared in Gaul. There, a respected governor named Gaius Julius Vindex reached a dangerous conclusion. Nero had become unfit to rule. Vindex belonged to the Gallic aristocracy but had long embraced Roman culture. Educated, ambitious, and politically connected, he understood that overthrowing an emperor required more than military strength. It required legitimacy. Instead of declaring himself emperor, Vindex supported another governor. Servius Sulpicius Galba. Galba was nearly 70 years old. An experienced aristocrat. A disciplined military commander. A man whose family traced its ancestry deep into Rome's republican past. Unlike Nero, Galba projected seriousness rather than theatrical extravagance. He looked every bit the traditional Roman noble. When news reached Spain, Galba hesitated. Supporting rebellion meant certain death if Nero survived. Remaining loyal might preserve his life, but perhaps doom the empire. For several anxious days, he refused to decide. Then everything changed. Messengers arrived carrying astonishing reports. More provinces were abandoning Nero. Support was growing. Momentum had shifted. Galba finally addressed his soldiers. He did not initially proclaim himself emperor. Instead, he adopted a carefully chosen title. Legate of the Senate and People of Rome. The wording mattered enormously. Rather than appearing as another ambitious usurper, Galba presented himself as the defender of legitimate Roman government. It was brilliant political strategy. And it worked. Soon, governors, senators, and military officers across the empire faced an impossible choice. Remain loyal to Nero. Or support the rebellion. Each day brought fresh defections. Each message carried darker news. The emperor's circle grew smaller. His enemies grew bolder. Inside Rome, fear spread through the imperial palace. Nero still possessed wealth. He still possessed authority. But authority means little when no one is willing to enforce it. The Praetorian Guard began reconsidering its loyalty. The Senate quietly discussed alternatives. Friends disappeared without explanation. One by one, the pillars supporting Nero's rule crumbled away. The empire was holding its breath. And before long, the fate of Rome would rest not in the Senate, nor among the people, but in the hands of the legions. 4 men, 1 throne. Dawn broke over Rome beneath an uneasy silence. For nearly a century, Romans had lived under a simple assumption. However imperfect an emperor might be, there would always be another waiting within the Julio-Claudian family. Augustus had carefully crafted the illusion that the Republic still existed, but everyone understood where real power lay. Tiberius had succeeded Augustus. Caligula had followed Tiberius. Claudius had followed Caligula. Nero had followed Claudius. Now, for the first time since Augustus became Rome's first emperor, that line was gone. There was no designated heir. No accepted successor. No constitutional process capable of preventing a struggle for power. The throne of the greatest empire on earth stood empty. And everyone wanted it. When news of Nero's death reached Rome, the Senate moved with remarkable speed. For years many senators had endured humiliation under Nero. Some had watched friends executed on accusations of conspiracy. Others had seen their fortunes confiscated. Publicly they had praised the emperor, but privately many had prayed for his downfall. Now, the opportunity had arrived. The Senate declared Nero an enemy of the state. His memory would eventually be condemned. His statues were removed. His portraits quietly disappeared from public buildings. In Rome, memory itself could become a political weapon. An emperor who had once been worshipped as the ruler of the civilized world could, almost overnight, be treated as though he had never deserved the throne at all. Messengers were dispatched across the empire. Galba was recognized as the new princeps, the first citizen of Rome. After months of uncertainty, the empire finally had another emperor. Or so it seemed. Servius Sulpicius Galba entered Rome not as a conquering hero, but as an old soldier who believed discipline could solve every problem. He was 70 years old. His face was deeply lined from decades of military service. His hair had turned silver. His movements were slower than those of younger commanders, but his reputation remained formidable. He had governed provinces, commanded armies, and served under multiple emperors. Few doubted his experience. Yet experience alone could not unite a fractured empire. Galba viewed Rome through the eyes of an older generation. He believed luxury had weakened the state. He believed soldiers had become spoiled. He believed government should be strict, predictable, and economical. Many Romans initially welcomed these ideas. After the extravagance of Nero, discipline sounded refreshing. But almost immediately, Galba began making enemies. One of his first decisions shocked the army. During the rebellion against Nero, Galba had reportedly promised generous rewards to soldiers who supported him. Such payments were common in Roman politics. An emperor's accession often came with gifts to the military, reinforcing loyalty at a crucial moment. Now that he held power, however, Galba refused. According to ancient historians, he declared, "I choose my soldiers. I do not buy them." The statement reflected traditional Roman values. But ideals did not pay hungry soldiers. Across the empire, disappointment quickly turned into resentment. Veteran legionaries who had risked everything to support Galba felt betrayed. The Praetorian Guard was equally furious. These elite troops had expected enormous bonuses for helping secure the transition. Instead, they received lectures about duty. For soldiers whose loyalty could determine the fate of emperors, it was a dangerous insult. Galba's problems extended far beyond the army. The imperial treasury was nearly empty. Years of massive construction projects, lavish entertainment, military campaigns, and political spending under Nero had strained Rome's finances. Galba responded with severe austerity. He cancelled expensive public spectacles. He demanded repayment of gifts distributed under Nero. He removed officials suspected of corruption. He cut unnecessary spending wherever he could find it. Economically, many of these measures were understandable. Politically, they were disastrous. Merchants complained. Aristocrats lost privileges. Entertainers lost imperial support. Ordinary citizens saw fewer public celebrations. Instead of appearing as a savior, Galba increasingly looked like an old man taking away everything people enjoyed. Rome's mood darkened. Yet perhaps Galba's greatest mistake concerned succession. His age raised an obvious question. Who would rule after him? Everyone expected him to adopt a younger heir. In Roman politics, adoption often functioned as a tool for choosing the most capable successor rather than relying solely on bloodlines. Augustus himself had used adoption to secure the future of his government. Several powerful men believed they were the obvious choice. One of them waited patiently. Marcus Salvius Otho. Otho had once been one of Nero's closest companions. The two young aristocrats had shared extravagant lifestyles in earlier years. They attended lavish banquets, celebrated victories together, and enjoyed the privileges of Rome's highest social circles. Their friendship eventually collapsed. Ancient writers connect the falling out to Poppaea Sabina, who became Nero's wife after previously being associated with Otho. The precise details remain debated, but Otho was quietly sent away to govern Lusitania, in modern Portugal. Instead of fading into obscurity, he became an effective provincial governor. When Galba rebelled against Nero, Otho immediately supported him. For months he remained loyally at Galba's side. Many believed that loyalty would soon be rewarded. Otho certainly believed so. Every decision he made reflected the expectation that Galba would adopt him as heir. He cultivated senators. spoke respectfully to soldiers, avoided unnecessary conflicts. He simply waited. Then came the day that changed everything. On January 10, 69 AD, Galba gathered leading senators and military officers. Rumors spread through the city long before the announcement. Today, Rome would learn the identity of its future emperor. Crowds filled the forum. Politicians whispered inside marble corridors. Even the Praetorian Guard watched closely. Galba stepped forward. Beside him stood a young aristocrat. But it was not Otho. It was Lucius Calpurnius Piso Licinianus. Piso belonged to one of Rome's oldest noble families. He possessed an honorable reputation. He was considered intelligent, disciplined, and morally upright. From Galba's perspective, Piso represented stability. From Otho's perspective, it was betrayal. Ancient historians describe Otho leaving the ceremony with remarkable composure. Outwardly, nothing appeared unusual. Inside, however, everything had changed. Years of loyalty had earned him nothing. If Galba would not make him emperor, perhaps someone else would. That evening, Otho began quietly contacting officers within the Praetorian Guard. These soldiers already hated Galba. Many still felt cheated out of the money they believed had been promised. Otho offered exactly what they wanted: gold, promotion, rewards, recognition. Unlike Galba, Otho understood an uncomfortable reality about Roman politics. An emperor did not simply inherit power. He purchased loyalty. Secret meetings multiplied throughout Rome. Inside taverns, private homes, military barracks. Plans took shape. The conspiracy remained astonishingly small. Only a few dozen men initially knew the truth. But that was enough. Sometimes the fate of civilizations turns not upon massive armies, but upon conversations whispered behind closed doors. On the morning of January 15, Galba left the imperial palace to conduct ordinary business. The city appeared calm. Citizens crowded marketplaces. Priests prepared sacrifices. Merchants opened their shops. Few suspected that history was about to change before lunchtime. As Galba traveled through the streets carried in his litter, conflicting rumors suddenly spread through the crowd. Some shouted that Otho had been arrested. Others claimed German soldiers were approaching. Confusion rippled across the forum. Galba hesitated. His advisors urged caution. Then came the sound that sealed his fate. The heavy footsteps of armed men. Praetorian guards. Not marching toward the emperor, but toward Otho. Within minutes, the elite soldiers proclaimed him emperor. The betrayal happened with breathtaking speed. Galba attempted to rally what remained of his supporters. It was already too late. Panic swept through his escort. Some fled. Others froze. Ancient sources record that Galba either fell from his litter or was thrown to the ground amid the chaos. The old emperor struggled to rise. He reportedly offered his neck to the attackers, declaring that if his death served Rome, they should strike. Whether those exact words were spoken can never be known. But the result is certain. A soldier thrust a sword into the 70-year-old emperor. Galba collapsed onto the stones of the forum. Moments later, Piso was hunted down and killed as well. The reign of Galba had lasted barely 7 months. Rome had lost its second emperor in less than a year. What followed revealed just how far Roman politics had fallen. According to several ancient accounts, Galba's severed head was placed upon a spear. It was carried through the streets by celebrating soldiers before eventually being presented to Otho. Modern historians debate some of the gruesome details, as ancient authors often emphasized shocking imagery. But there is little doubt that the transfer of power was marked by extraordinary brutality. The message was unmistakable. The emperor was no longer sacred. He could be bought. He could be betrayed. And he could be killed. That same day, the Senate recognized Otho as emperor. There was almost no resistance. Many senators simply wished to avoid another civil war. If accepting Otho prevented further bloodshed, perhaps stability could still be preserved. For a brief moment, it seemed possible. Rome had another emperor. The streets calmed. Government resumed. Life continued. But history had other plans. Hundreds of miles to the north, along the cold frontier of the Rhine, hardened Roman legions had already made a decision of their own. They had no intention of accepting Otho. Their commander was a respected general named Aulus Vitellius. Unlike the politicians in Rome, these soldiers believed that emperors should be chosen by the strongest army, not by palace conspiracies or the Praetorian Guard. On New Year's Day, before Galba had even been assassinated, the Rhine legions had already proclaimed Vitellius their emperor. Now two men claimed the same throne. Neither intended to surrender. For the first time in generations, Roman legions were preparing to march against Rome itself. And before long, the fields of northern Italy would become soaked with Roman blood spilled by Roman hands. The battle for Rome. Winter settled over northern Italy like a gray veil. The vineyards had long since been stripped bare. Frost clung to the rolling fields, and cold winds swept across the ancient Roman roads. Travelers wrapped themselves tightly in heavy wool cloaks as they hurried between towns, carrying messages that grew more alarming with every passing day. The empire now had two emperors. One ruled from Rome. The other commanded some of the finest legions on the German frontier. Neither man could truly govern while the other lived. War was no longer a possibility. It was inevitable. Inside the imperial palace, Otho understood the reality better than anyone. He had seized power quickly, but he had inherited almost nothing that guaranteed he could keep it. The Praetorian Guard supported him. Most senators had reluctantly accepted him. The people of Rome, exhausted by months of uncertainty, simply wanted peace. But peace could not exist while the Rhine legions marched south. Every report painted the same picture. Vitellius was advancing. Not alone. With tens of thousands of experienced soldiers. These were not newly raised recruits. They were veterans. Men who had spent years patrolling the forests beyond the Rhine, fighting fierce Germanic tribes, surviving brutal winters, and living together under relentless military discipline. Many had scars older than some of Rome's youngest officers. They respected strength. Nothing else. Their commander, Aulus Vitellius, was a curious figure. Unlike Julius Caesar or Germanicus, he was not celebrated as a military genius. Ancient historians often portrayed him as lazy, fond of extravagant feasts, and more interested in pleasure than strategy. Suetonius even described enormous banquets that became legendary for their excess. Yet historians also caution that much of what survives about Vitellius was written after his defeat, when it became politically convenient to ridicule the fallen emperor. Whatever his personal flaws may have been, one fact cannot be denied. His soldiers trusted him. And in Roman politics, that trust mattered more than eloquent speeches in the Senate. Rather than leading every operation himself, Vitellius relied heavily upon two experienced commanders. Aulus Caecina Aelianus. Fabius Valens. Together, they commanded two powerful armies that began moving toward Italy along separate routes. It was an intelligent strategy. By dividing their advance, they forced Otho to defend multiple directions at once. Every bridge, every mountain pass, every supply route could become a battlefield. Rome itself watched anxiously. Markets remained open. Temples continued their ceremonies. Children still played in crowded streets. But conversations had changed. Merchants discussed troop movements instead of prices. Senators whispered about possible outcomes. Families wondered which emperor would emerge victorious. No one knew where the first great battle would occur. Everyone knew it was coming. Meanwhile, Otho made a surprising decision. Many expected him to remain safely inside Rome while his generals commanded the army. Instead, he chose to accompany his soldiers north. The decision carried enormous risk. If he died in battle, his reign would end immediately. But remaining behind might convince the army that he lacked courage. So the emperor marched. As his column left Rome, citizens gathered along the roadsides. Some cheered. Others watched silently. Veterans recognized familiar sights. The rhythmic thunder of thousands of hobnailed sandals striking stone. The gleam of polished helmets beneath the winter sun. Standards bearing the eagle of Rome fluttering in the cold wind. Mules hauling siege equipment. Engineers carrying tools for bridges and fortifications. Doctors riding with wagons filled with medical supplies. This was the Roman army at work. Not merely warriors, but an entire moving civilization. Every legion functioned like a disciplined machine. A typical legion numbered around 5,000 men, though actual strength varied. Each soldier carried far more than weapons. His shield. His helmet. His armor. His sword, the famous gladius. 2 heavy throwing spears known as pila. Tools for digging. Cooking equipment. Food for several days. Personal belongings. Roman soldiers often joked that they resembled pack animals more than warriors. Yet this self-sufficiency made Rome's armies extraordinarily effective. At the end of every day's march, they constructed fortified camps complete with defensive ditches, wooden palisades, and carefully organized streets. Even temporary camps reflected Rome's obsession with order. Discipline was their greatest weapon. As Otho advanced, his commanders debated strategy. Some argued they should wait. Additional legions loyal to Otho were still marching from the Balkans. Given enough time, his numerical strength would increase significantly. Others insisted delay favored Vitellius. The longer they waited, the more enemy forces would arrive from Germany. Every day shifted the balance. Pressure mounted. Supplies dwindled. Patience evaporated. Eventually, Otho made his choice. He would fight immediately. History would judge that decision harshly. The opposing armies converged near the small village of Bedriacum in northern Italy, close to modern Cremona. At first glance, the countryside appeared peaceful. Gentle farmland stretched across the landscape. Low hills overlooked open plains. Roads built by Roman engineers cut through fields where farmers had worked for generations. Soon those same fields would be transformed into killing grounds. The night before battle, neither army slept well. Campfires flickered beneath a cloud-covered sky. Blacksmiths made final repairs to damaged armor. Priests performed sacrifices, searching for favorable omens in the entrails of animals. Letters were written to families who might never see their sons again. Veterans quietly sharpened swords already worn smooth by years of campaigning. New recruits stared into the darkness. Some prayed. Some trembled. Others simply waited. Across the fields, thousands of men understood a terrible truth. Tomorrow they would not fight barbarians. They would fight fellow Romans. Men who spoke the same language. Worshipped the same gods. Marched beneath the same eagle. At first light, horns echoed across the countryside. The signal spread from one unit to another. Soldiers rose. Armor buckles tightened. Helmets lowered into place. Standards lifted high. The great machine began moving. A cold mist drifted over the fields as the two armies slowly approached one another. From a distance, they looked almost identical. Rectangular shields. Iron helmets. Red military cloaks. Silver armor catching the pale morning sunlight. There were no obvious differences. No foreign clothing. No strange banners. Only Romans. Preparing to kill Romans. The battle opened with volleys of pila. Thousands of heavy javelins arced through the sky. They struck shields with terrifying force. Roman engineers had designed these weapons brilliantly. The long iron shank often bent after impact, making the spear difficult to remove. A shield pierced by a pylon became awkward and nearly useless. Many soldiers simply threw damaged shields aside. Exactly as Roman tacticians intended. Then came the order every legionary knew by heart. Advance. The lines collided. The sound was deafening. Wood smashing against wood. Iron striking iron. Officers shouting commands. Men screaming in pain. The deep roar of thousands struggling for survival. Dust rose into the air until entire sections of the battlefield disappeared behind swirling clouds. Visibility collapsed. Commanders could no longer see much beyond the soldiers directly before them. Control gave way to chaos. Unlike dramatic scenes often shown in modern films, Roman battles were not endless sword duels between individuals. They were contests of discipline. A legionary fought as part of a wall. Each man's shield protected not only himself but also the soldier beside him. Victory depended upon maintaining formation. When formations broke, massacres began. At Bedriacum, both sides understood this perfectly. Centurions moved constantly behind the ranks. Their vine staffs cracked across the backs of any soldier who hesitated. Cowardice endangered everyone. There was no room for panic. For hours, neither side gained a decisive advantage. The front lines surged forward. Then backward. Units became exhausted and were replaced by fresh cohorts. Officers searched desperately for weaknesses. Whenever one formation began to falter, reserves rushed forward to reinforce it. The battlefield became an enormous contest of endurance. Who would break first? Then everything changed. One of Otho's key forces had spent days marching before reaching the battlefield. The soldiers were exhausted. Hungry. Sleep-deprived. Many had barely recovered from the journey. Vitellius' veterans recognized the opportunity immediately. They attacked with overwhelming force. The tired line began to buckle. Once a small gap appeared, it widened rapidly. Panic spread faster than orders could stop it. Men who had stood firm moments earlier suddenly found themselves exposed on both sides. Some attempted organized withdrawal. Others simply ran. The disciplined wall dissolved into confusion. The retreat quickly became a rout. Roman soldiers stumbled over abandoned equipment. Standards disappeared beneath crowds of fleeing men. Wounded legionaries cried for help that never came. Cavalry pursued isolated groups across the open fields. The battle had lasted most of the day. Its outcome became clear in only a matter of minutes. Otho's army had been defeated. Thousands lay dead or dying. Others surrendered. Still more scattered across the countryside hoping to escape. For the victorious Rhine legions, the road to Rome suddenly stood open. When news reached Otho, he faced a choice that would define his legacy. Many of his generals urged him to continue fighting. Fresh reinforcements were still approaching. Several loyal legions had not yet entered the war. Another battle remained possible. Perhaps even victory. But Otho looked beyond the next campaign. He had witnessed what civil war was doing to Rome. Every battle destroyed experienced soldiers the empire desperately needed. Every victory weakened Rome itself. According to Tacitus, Otho gathered his closest companions that evening. His decision stunned them. He would not continue the war. He refused to sacrifice thousands more Romans merely to preserve his own throne. The next morning, after calmly saying farewell to his friends, Otho lay down inside his tent. He pressed a dagger against his chest. Without hesitation, he drove it into his heart. He was only 36 years old. His reign had lasted 95 days. Even many enemies admired the dignity of his final act. Ancient writers who criticized much of his life nevertheless praised the way he chose to die. In the end, Otho accomplished something rare among Roman rulers. He placed the survival of the empire above his own ambition. But history had not finished testing Rome. As Vitellius marched triumphantly toward the capital, another commander, far away in the eastern provinces, was quietly gathering support. His name was Vespasian. And before the year was over, Rome would descend into an even bloodier civil war than the one it had just survived. Rome burns again. The celebrations began before Vitellius even reached the city. Messengers galloped ahead of the victorious army, carrying news that spread across Italy with astonishing speed. The Emperor Otho was dead. The civil war was over. Or so everyone believed. In villages along the great Roman roads, people emerged from their homes to watch endless columns of soldiers march south. Dust rose into the summer air as thousands of boots struck the stone highways built generations earlier by Roman engineers. Eagles glittered above the legions. Trumpets echoed through valleys that had not heard such sounds since the great campaigns of Augustus. To many ordinary Romans, these soldiers looked like heroes returning from a foreign conquest. Only one terrible detail spoiled the illusion. The men they had defeated were Romans. As Vitellius approached the capital, senators hurried to prepare for another transfer of power. The Senate had already recognized Galba. Then Otho. Now, with equal speed, it acknowledged Vitellius. Few politicians were willing to die defending a losing emperor. Survival often mattered more than loyalty. Inside the Curia, speeches praised Vitellius as the rightful ruler chosen by destiny. Many of the same senators had praised Otho only weeks earlier. Such was the reality of Roman politics. Public conviction frequently changed as quickly as military fortunes. Vitellius entered Rome in triumph. Ancient historians describe magnificent processions stretching through crowded streets. Citizens lined the roads. Priests carried incense toward the temples. Musicians filled the air with the sound of horns and drums. Flowers rained down from balconies. For a brief moment, the city seemed united again. The nightmare was over. Or so it appeared. The new emperor inherited an empire exhausted by months of uncertainty. Yet rather than restoring discipline immediately, Vitellius devoted enormous attention to rewarding the soldiers who had brought him victory. His German frontier legions became the dominant military presence in Rome. Thousands of hardened veterans suddenly found themselves living inside the largest city in the world. For many citizens, it was deeply unsettling. These men had spent years stationed along distant frontiers. Now they crowded taverns, marketplaces, bathhouses, and public squares. Fights became increasingly common. Discipline gradually weakened. Rome no longer felt entirely like Rome. It felt like an occupied city. Vitellius himself quickly earned a reputation for extravagant living. Ancient writers paint a picture of almost unimaginable luxury. Lavish banquets reportedly lasted for hours. Rare fish arrived from distant seas. Exotic birds were served alongside delicacies imported from every corner of the empire. One feast supposedly consumed fortunes that could have funded entire military campaigns. Modern historians remain cautious about these accounts. Roman authors often exaggerated the excesses of defeated emperors to justify later rulers. Still, there is little doubt that Vitellius struggled to project the image of a disciplined reformer. While the treasury remained under pressure and the empire needed stability, the court appeared increasingly devoted to pleasure. Meanwhile, events unfolding thousands of kilometers away would soon determine his fate. Far to the east, beyond the Aegean Sea, another Roman army was fighting a very different war. The province of Judea had been in open rebellion since 66 AD. Roman garrisons had been attacked. Cities had changed hands. The uprising had grown into one of the greatest military challenges of the century. Leading Rome's response was an experienced general named Titus Flavius Vespasianus. History remembers him simply as Vespasian. Unlike many ambitious aristocrats, Vespasian did not come from one of Rome's oldest noble families. His ancestors had not filled generations of consulships. They were respected, but not among the ancient elite. Everything Vespasian achieved came through military competence. By the age of 60, he had spent decades serving the empire. He had fought in Britain, governed provinces, earned the respect of soldiers through discipline rather than spectacle. He rarely spoke dramatically. He preferred practical solutions. Where others sought glory, Vespasian sought results. When news of Nero's death first reached the eastern provinces, Vespasian reacted cautiously. His army had more immediate concerns. Jerusalem still resisted Roman authority. The rebellion remained dangerous. Becoming involved in imperial politics seemed reckless. Then came news of Galba. Soon afterward, Otho. Then, Vitellius. 3 emperors within a single year. The eastern governors watched in disbelief. Could the empire truly survive such instability? One of the most influential men in the east was Gaius Licinius Mucianus, governor of Syria. Relations between Mucianus and Vespasian had once been strained. Both commanded enormous armies. Both possessed considerable prestige. Both understood that rivalry could weaken Rome precisely when unity was needed. Over time, mutual necessity overcame personal differences. The two generals met privately. Ancient historians cannot tell us every word spoken during those conversations. But the outcome changed history. Mucianus agreed to support Vespasian's claim to the throne. Soon afterward, the powerful governor of Egypt also declared his loyalty. That decision proved crucial. Egypt was not merely another province. It was Rome's breadbasket. Each year enormous fleets transported grain from Alexandria across the Mediterranean to feed the capital. Whoever controlled Egypt possessed immense economic leverage. If grain shipments stopped, Rome could starve. On July 1, 69 AD, the legions stationed in Egypt proclaimed Vespasian emperor. Days later, the armies of Judea followed. Soon Syria joined them. One after another, eastern provinces recognized a new ruler. The empire now had yet another emperor. Not one, not two, but 3 different men had claimed supreme authority during the same year. History would forever remember 69 AD as the year of the 4 emperors. Unlike previous claimants, Vespasian moved carefully. Rather than rushing immediately toward Italy, he secured resources first. Egypt remained under his control. Eastern finances strengthened his position. Alliances multiplied. Experienced officers coordinated troop movements across vast distances. Among these commanders stood one man whose determination would decide the coming campaign. Marcus Antonius Primus. He believed waiting only strengthened Vitellius. Against cautious advice, Primus began advancing toward northern Italy before every detail of the broader strategy had been finalized. It was a bold gamble. One that would force history to accelerate. Vitellius underestimated the danger. Reports from the east seemed distant. Surely months remained before another army could threaten Rome. Perhaps diplomacy might still prevent another civil war. Perhaps eastern commanders would lose confidence. Perhaps. But history had other plans. The armies loyal to Vespasian marched faster than expected. Veterans who had campaigned across Britain, the Balkans, Syria, and the Danube now united beneath a single cause. The road north of the Po River once again filled with Roman soldiers. Once again, Romans prepared to fight Romans. The 2 armies met near the same place where Otho had been defeated only months earlier. Bedriacum. The fields had barely recovered. Farmers attempting to restore their land found broken shields buried beneath the soil. Discarded helmets rusted among tall grass. Bones still emerged after heavy rain. Now fresh armies arrived to add thousands more dead. The Second Battle of Bedriacum became even more savage than the first. Unlike earlier campaigns, many soldiers understood exactly what civil war meant. There would be no glorious triumph over barbarians. No foreign captives. No new provinces. Only more Roman corpses. The battle stretched through the night. Moonlight reflected from thousands of blades. Torches illuminated desperate fighting in darkness. Commands became difficult to hear. Formations dissolved. Men often recognized familiar accents among those trying to kill them. Some had once served together. Others had trained under the same instructors years before. Now they met as enemies. By dawn, Vitellius' forces were broken. The road to Rome lay open once again. News reached the capital like a thunderclap. Panic spread through the Senate. Some immediately abandoned Vitellius. Others urged negotiation. Still others prepared to flee. Vitellius himself reportedly considered abdication. At one point, he even discussed surrendering power peacefully to avoid further bloodshed. But his supporters refused. The Praetorians still loyal to him demanded resistance. Crowds became divided. Rumors multiplied hourly. The city held its breath. Then violence erupted. And for the first time in generations, the eternal city itself became the battlefield. The emperor who saved Rome. Rome had seen invasions before. Centuries earlier, the Gauls had stormed the city. Hannibal had threatened its very existence. Foreign enemies had marched against the Republic. But this was different. The army approaching Rome did not speak another language. Its standards bore the same golden eagle. Its soldiers worshipped the same gods. Every man wore Roman armor. The greatest city in the world was about to be attacked by its own empire. As dawn broke over the 7 hills, an unnatural silence settled across the capital. The usually crowded Forum Romanum was quieter than anyone could remember. Merchants kept their shops closed. Families barricaded their doors. Mothers pulled children away from the streets. The smell of fresh bread that normally drifted from neighborhood bakeries had been replaced by smoke from hastily built barricades. From rooftops, citizens stared toward the northern roads. Everyone waited. No one knew exactly when the fighting would begin. But everyone knew it was coming. Inside the imperial palace, Vitellius no longer looked like a confident ruler. Only weeks earlier he had celebrated victory with lavish feasts. Now he moved through marble corridors surrounded by anxious advisors. Some begged him to negotiate. Others insisted the city could still be defended. The Praetorian Guard remained divided. Many soldiers had already begun questioning whether dying for Vitellius was worth the sacrifice. Even among his closest supporters, confidence was disappearing. History often remembers the final days of fallen rulers as moments of cowardice. Reality is usually more complicated. Vitellius understood the scale of the disaster before him. The treasury was depleted. The Senate no longer trusted him. Entire provinces had declared for Vespasian. The Danubian legions were closing in. His political foundation had collapsed. For a brief moment, peace still seemed possible. Ancient historians record that Vitellius considered resigning. According to Tacitus, negotiations even began. Messengers carried proposals between opposing factions. If Vitellius stepped aside peacefully, perhaps Rome could avoid another massacre. Many senators desperately supported the idea. After nearly 2 years of chaos, almost everyone wanted stability more than victory. But events slipped beyond anyone's control. Crowds loyal to Vitellius denounced surrender. His remaining soldiers refused to abandon their emperor. Rumors spread that Vespasian's supporters intended revenge. Fear replaced reason. Once again, violence won. The first clashes erupted outside the city before spreading toward its heart. Legionaries forced their way through defensive positions while loyalists attempted to block bridges and narrow streets. Rome's magnificent architecture, designed to display imperial greatness, suddenly became obstacles and fortifications. Columns provided cover for archers. Temple staircases became defensive positions. Public squares transformed into battlefields. The sound of organized military commands echoed between marble buildings. Advance. Hold the line. Close the ranks. The city itself had become a fortress. Among the first major objectives stood the Capitoline Hill. For centuries, this hill had represented the spiritual heart of Rome. At its summit stood the magnificent temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus. The temple was more than a religious sanctuary. It symbolized Roman identity itself. Victorious generals ended their triumphs there. Senators sought divine guidance beneath its towering columns. Foreign ambassadors looked upon it with awe. Its destruction seemed unthinkable. Yet civil war recognizes no sacred ground. As fighting intensified around the Capitoline, flames suddenly appeared. Whether they began accidentally during combat or were deliberately set remains one of the great historical debates. Ancient authors disagree. Some blamed Vitellius' supporters. Others blamed attacking forces. Modern historians acknowledge that certainty is impossible. What is certain is that the fire spread rapidly. Dry wooden roofs ignited. Smoke rolled across the hill. Columns cracked beneath intense heat. Priests desperately attempted to rescue sacred objects. Many failed. Soon, one of Rome's oldest and most revered temples collapsed into an inferno. Citizens watching from below stood frozen in disbelief. The Temple of Jupiter had survived foreign invasions. Now it burned because Romans were fighting Romans. For many witnesses, it felt like the gods themselves had abandoned the city. Street fighting reached terrifying intensity. Unlike battles fought on open plains, combat inside Rome became chaotic and deeply personal. Soldiers forced open house doors searching for hidden enemies. Families hid beneath staircases while fighting raged outside. Citizens who had never held weapons suddenly found themselves trapped between opposing armies. The narrow streets amplified every sound. The clash of iron. The crash of collapsing buildings. The screams of wounded men. The terrified cries of children. Smoke darkened the winter sky until daylight itself seemed to fade. Ancient Rome, master of the Mediterranean, resembled a city under foreign siege. Except there were no foreigners. Vitellius made one final attempt to escape. Disguised in ordinary clothing, he reportedly slipped away from the palace with only a few companions. Ancient historians describe him wandering through familiar streets almost unnoticed. Eventually, he reached the imperial palace once more and hid inside a small doorkeeper's lodge. Whether he hoped to flee later or simply delayed the inevitable, we cannot know. The hiding place offered little protection. Soldiers loyal to Vespasian soon discovered him. The emperor was dragged into the streets. Tacitus provides one of the most haunting descriptions of what followed. Vitellius was pulled through the Forum Romanum while crowds gathered on every side. Some mocked him. Others watched silently. A few pitied him. His clothes were torn. His face bruised. The man who had ruled the Roman Empire only months earlier was now a defeated prisoner. As he passed familiar monuments, he reportedly looked toward the ruins of the burning Capitoline Temple. According to one tradition, he quietly remarked, "Yet this was once my home." Whether those exact words were spoken remains uncertain. But the image has endured for nearly 2,000 years. Moments later, Vitellius was executed near the Gemonian stairs. His body was thrown into the Tiber. His reign had lasted only 8 months. The fourth emperor of the year was dead. At last, the killing began to subside. Messengers rode across the empire carrying extraordinary news. The civil war was over. Vespasian had won. Yet the victory felt strangely hollow. Rome itself had paid the price. Thousands of soldiers were dead. Entire districts had been damaged. Its holiest temple lay in ashes. Its political institutions had been shattered. The empire had survived. But barely. Vespasian did not immediately rush to Rome. He remained in the east while trusted commanders restored order. When he finally entered the capital in 70 AD, he encountered a city unlike the one Nero or Galba had ruled. The treasury was nearly empty. Public confidence had collapsed. The army required reorganization. Government offices had been disrupted. Everywhere stood reminders of civil war. Vespasian understood something his predecessors had not. Rome did not need another performer. It needed a builder. Over the next decade, he quietly transformed the empire. Taxes were reorganized to stabilize the finances. Corruption was reduced. Provincial administration became more efficient. The army was carefully restructured, ensuring no single frontier force could dominate imperial politics as easily again. Public construction resumed. Perhaps his most famous decision was deeply symbolic. On the site of Nero's enormous private lake, the centerpiece of the extravagant Domus Aurea, Vespasian ordered the construction of a massive amphitheater for the people of Rome. The message was unmistakable. Where one emperor had built a palace for himself, the new emperor would build something for everyone. That amphitheater would later become known as the Colosseum. It remains one of the most recognizable monuments in human history. Archaeology continues to reveal traces of this remarkable period. Excavations around the Roman Forum have uncovered evidence of the destruction caused during the Civil War. Burn layers beneath the Capitoline Hill correspond closely with ancient accounts of the fire. Coins issued by each of the four emperors remind us just how rapidly power changed hands. Statues altered, inscriptions erased, and damaged monuments all preserve silent testimony to a year when the Roman world nearly tore itself apart. Every discovery reinforces the same conclusion. The Roman Empire did not fall in 69 AD. But it came closer than most people realize. Historians still debate an intriguing question. Why did Rome survive? Many powerful states have collapsed after civil wars. The Roman Republic itself eventually disappeared following generations of internal conflict. Yet the empire endured. Part of the answer lies in its institutions. Its roads still functioned. Its bureaucracy continued collecting taxes. Its provinces remained economically connected. Most importantly, after years of chaos, Vespasian offered something every exhausted Roman desired more than glory: stability. When people think about ancient Rome today, they often imagine triumphant legions, magnificent temples, fearless gladiators, and emperors commanding an invincible empire. But the events of 69 AD reveal a different truth. The greatest threat Rome ever faced did not come from Carthage, or Parthia, or the Germanic tribes beyond the Rhine. It came from ambition, from pride, from men willing to destroy their own civilization in pursuit of absolute power. The Tiber did not run red because foreigners invaded the Eternal City. It ran red because Romans forgot that an empire cannot survive when its greatest enemy is itself. And perhaps that is why the story of the Year of the Four Emperors still matters today. Not because it tells us how Rome nearly fell, but because it reminds us that even the strongest civilizations stand upon something far more fragile than stone walls, mighty armies, or magnificent monuments. They stand upon trust. And once that trust is broken, even an empire that ruled the known world can find itself only a single year away from destruction. The empire survived.